Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from. Then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. I worked the night shift at a 7-Eleven in a small town, just off the highway. My name is Jake, I'm 26, and if there's one thing I've learned from working here, it's that nothing good happens between midnight and 5 a.m. Most nights are quiet, just a few truckers stopping for coffee, a couple of drunk college kids grabbing snacks, and the occasional weirdo who stares at the hot dog rollers for way too long. But then there are nights like last Friday. Nights that make me question if this job is worth it. It was around 2:30 a.m. when he walked in. I noticed him immediately because he didn't match the usual late-night crowd. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled up, and his jeans looked worn, like he had been walking for miles. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, and he didn't make eye contact as he stepped inside. I gave him the usual nod and went back to stocking cigarettes behind the counter. At first, he just wandered the aisles. No basket, no urgency, just slow, deliberate steps. He stopped at the canned goods section, stood there for way too long, then moved to the freezers. Something about him made me uneasy. I kept an eye on him through the convex mirror in the corner of the store. He wasn't looking at the products. He was looking at the cameras. That was the first red flag. The second came when he finally grabbed something, a single bottle of water, and walked toward the counter. He placed it down without a word. "That everything?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't answer, just nodded once. I rang it up. "That'll be $1.79. He didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he just stood there looking at me. Not at my face, at my hands. I felt my stomach tighten. "You okay, man?" That's when he finally spoke. "You're alone, right?" My breath caught in my throat. My shift partner, Luis, was in the back room, but something told me not to mention that. I forced a chuckle. "Nah, manager's in the office." He didn't react. Didn't even blink. Then, slowly, he reached into his hoodie pocket. My heart started pounding. I took half a step back, ready to hit the silent alarm under the register. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a Polaroid photo and slid it across the counter. I didn't want to look, but I did, and my blood turned to ice. It was a picture of me, taken from outside the store, through the glass, from earlier that night, before my shift even started. I stared at the photo, my hands gripping the counter to keep them from shaking. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't answer. He just stood there, waiting. That's when Luis came out of the back, yawning, stretching his arms. The guy didn't even turn to look at him. Just slowly picked up his water bottle, turned around, and walked out. The automatic doors slid shut behind him. Luis frowned. "What was that about?" I didn't answer. I was still staring at the Polaroid, because as I looked closer, I realized something. The timestamp on the bottom of the photo. It was from last night, and in the reflection of the glass behind me, there was someone else, standing in the aisle, watching me. I never saw them, and I never heard them leave. I didn't sleep after that shift. I went home, locked my doors, closed my blinds, and sat in my apartment with every light on. My brain kept playing the image over and over, me at the register, unaware, while someone stood behind me. I checked my phone, scrolled through my photos. Nothing. Whoever took that picture didn't use my phone, which meant they were inside the store, and I never saw them. By the time my next shift rolled around, I had convinced myself it was some elaborate prank. Maybe a friend messing with me. Maybe a weird coincidence. I was wrong. It was just past 1 a.m. when I heard it. A soft tapping on the glass. I looked up from my phone, expecting to see a customer. The parking lot was empty. But there, just outside the store, the man in the hoodie. He wasn't coming in. He was standing by the window, holding something in his hand. Another Polaroid. I swallowed hard. My first instinct was to ignore him. Maybe if I acted like I didn't see him, he'd go away. But he didn't move. He just stood there, watching me, holding the photo up against the glass. I tried to act normal, picked up my phone, pretending to text. My fingers hovered over the call button. I thought about dialing Luis, but he wasn't here tonight. I was alone. I glanced up again. The man was gone, but the Polaroid, it was stuck to the glass. I walked around the counter, hesitating before stepping outside. The night air was cold, and the streetlights flickered above me. I reached for the photo, and my stomach dropped. It was me, but not from the store, not from the register. It was me sleeping, in my apartment, my bed, my room. I dropped the photo, stumbled back inside, my breath coming in short gasps. How? How did he get in? I locked my doors. I checked my windows. I turned back toward the store entrance, and my blood ran cold. The Polaroid was gone. Someone had taken it. Someone was still out there, watching, waiting. And then, the store phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I picked it up, my hand shaking. 7-Eleven, I said, my voice unsteady. Silence. Then, breathing. Slow. Shallow. I hung up. Ran to the back. Locked myself in the supply room. I called the cops. When they arrived, they found nothing. No one outside. No signs of forced entry at my apartment. No cameras in my building's hallway. But they did find something in the store's security footage. At 12:45 a.m., before the tapping on the glass, the back storage door opened. Just an inch. Then it closed, like someone was already inside. And they left, without ever being seen. I quit that night. I don't work at 7-Eleven anymore. But sometimes when I walk home, I swear I feel it. Someone watching. And I still don't know how they got inside. Or worse, if they ever left. I've worked at 7-Eleven for almost 5 years. The night shift isn't glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most of the time, it's just me, the hum of the refrigerators, and the occasional drunk trying to buy cigarettes without an ID. I've seen my fair share of weird customers, people talking to themselves, sketchy guys lurking around the parking lot, a woman who once tried to buy a single hot dog bun, as if that was a normal thing. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what happened last summer. It started around 3 a.m. The store was empty. No cars outside. No movement. Just me scrolling through my phone behind the counter. Then, a rustling noise from the security feed. We had a few cameras, one facing the entrance, one on the aisles, another covering the back storage room. I glanced at the screen. Aisle 3 empty. Aisle 5 empty. Back room. The door was open. I frowned. I had locked that door. I was sure of it. I leaned forward, staring at the screen. The door slowly closed. Not all the way. Just enough to make it clear. Someone had been inside. Or worse, someone still was. I grabbed the store phone and dialed Chris, my shift partner. No answer. I checked the cameras again, and that's when I saw it. A figure. Tall. Thin. Standing perfectly still between the shelves. I felt a lump in my throat. They weren't there before. I had just checked. I reached under the counter for the baseball bat we kept for security. I didn't want to confront anyone, but I wasn't about to let some lunatic sneak up on me. I stepped around the counter, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Aisle 1 empty. Aisle 2 empty. Aisle 3. Gone. The figure was gone. I gripped the bat tighter, scanning the store. Then, a sound. Soft. Rhythmic. It was coming from the freezers in the back. I turned slowly, my breath caught in my throat. The glass doors reflected the dim fluorescent lights. And there, in the reflection, a face, right behind me. I spun around, swinging the bat. Nothing. No one. The store was empty. The only sound was my own ragged breathing. I checked the cameras again. Every aisle. Every angle. Nothing. I was alone. Or so I thought. Because then, the back storage door opened. And this time, it didn't close. I stared at the open storage door, my pulse pounding in my ears. Someone was in there. I tightened my grip on the bat and forced myself to take a step forward. The door creaked slightly as it swayed open, revealing only darkness beyond. I reached for the light switch, flicked it on. Nothing. The bulb flickered once, then died, plunging the room back into shadow. I should have called the cops. I should have left. But something in me needed to know. It was in my store. I stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, carrying the faint scent of something rotten. Boxes were stacked against the walls. Shelves lined with extra inventory. Nothing looked out of place. Until I saw the freezer door. The other freezer. The one in the back, where we stored expired products before disposal. It was slightly open. I swallowed hard. Slowly, I reached out and pulled the door wider. The smell hit me first. Sour. Pungent. Like spoiled meat. Then, something moved. A shape, curled in the corner, pressed against the frozen shelves. Breathless, I stepped closer, and then I saw them. A pair of wide, bloodshot eyes staring back at me. A man. Thin. Pale. His clothes were stiff with grime, his hands gripping his knees, nails blackened and cracked. He wasn't homeless. He wasn't a thief. He was hiding, and from the way his lips trembled, from the sheer panic in his expression. He wasn't hiding from me. He was hiding from something else. I opened my mouth to speak, but then I heard it. A faint, shallow breathing, coming from behind me. I turned. The storage door was still open. The store beyond it was still empty. But the air felt wrong. Heavy, like something was watching. The man in the freezer let out a sharp breath. And then, he started shaking his head. Violently. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, you let it in." A shiver crawled up my spine. "What?" I whispered. His eyes flicked past me. His whole body tensed. Then, he bolted. Rushed past me, knocking into shelves, scrambling out of the freezer. He didn't stop. Didn't look back. He ran straight through the store, knocking over displays, and out the front door. Into the night. Gone. I stood there, my heart hammering, my breath coming in short gasps. Then finally, I turned around, back toward the open storage door, and I saw it, just for a second, a shape, tall, thin, standing between the shelves, watching me. Then, the lights flickered, and when they came back on, it was gone. I quit my job the next day. Chris still works there. I asked him if he's seen anything since. He won't talk about it, but sometimes late at night I drive past the store. The fluorescent lights buzz. The shelves are stocked. Everything looks normal. But every now and then, if I stare through the glass long enough, I swear I see something move. Something tall, thin, standing between the shelves. Working the night shift at 7-Eleven was never exciting, but that was kind of the point. I liked the quiet, the occasional customer stumbling and half-drunk, the hum of the refrigerators, the way time seemed to stretch in the early morning hours. But that night something felt off. It was around 2:45 a.m. Heavy rain was coming down, hammering against the glass windows. The streets were empty, the parking lot a dark, flooded mess. I was alone, sitting behind the counter, scrolling through my phone to stay awake. Then, the automatic doors slid open. A gust of cold air rushed inside. I looked up. A man stepped in, drenched from head to toe. His clothes clung to him, rainwater dripping onto the floor. He didn't even shake off the cold, just walked in, slow and deliberate, his shoes squelching against the tile. I gave him the usual nod. "Rough night out there?" He didn't respond, didn't even glance at me. Instead, he made his way toward the back of the store, disappearing into one of the aisles. I frowned. Normally, people who came in during storms were in a hurry, grabbing cigarettes, beer, maybe some instant ramen. But this guy, he was just wandering. Something about him made my stomach twist. I glanced at the security monitors. The rain-soaked man stood in aisle 3, facing the shelves, not moving, just standing there. I cleared my throat. "Need help finding something?" No response. The store was silent except for the hum of the refrigerators and the rain slamming against the windows. Then, he spoke. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was flat, emotionless. A chill ran down my spine. This is my job," I said, forcing a laugh. "Kinda have to be here." He still didn't turn. Then, slowly, he raised a single hand and pointed toward the glass doors. I followed his gaze. Outside, beyond the neon glow of the open sign, there was nothing, just the rain, The empty parking lot. The flickering streetlights. What am I supposed to be looking at? I asked, my pulse quickening. Then, lightning flashed. For half a second, the parking lot lit up like daylight. And that's when I saw it. A figure, standing just beyond the streetlight. Tall, motionless, watching. Then, darkness. The lights flickered. The storm roared against the glass. I turned back to aisle 3. Empty. The man was gone. No sound. No movement. Just gone. My breath came fast and uneven. I reached for my phone, my fingers cold against the screen. I pulled up the security feed, rewinding the last few minutes. The doors sliding open. The man stepping inside. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., static, for 7 whole seconds. When the footage came back, the store was empty, like he was never there. A deep, suffocating unease settled in my chest. I locked the doors, flipped the sign to closed, but as I turned to shut off the lights, a noise made me stop cold, a single, deliberate knock against the glass. I didn't want to look, but I did, and outside, just beyond the glow of the neon sign, something was standing there, waiting. I stood frozen behind the counter, my breath caught in my throat. Another knock. Slow. Deliberate. I forced myself to look. Through the rain-streaked glass, beyond the neon open sign, a figure stood just outside. Still. Motionless. I couldn't see his face. The dim glow of the parking lot barely reached him, but I could tell. He was watching me. I swallowed hard. "We're closed," I called out, my voice unsteady. The figure didn't react. Didn't move. Just stood there. Lightning flashed again, and for a split second I saw it clearly. The same rain-soaked man from earlier. But something was wrong. His head was tilted too far to one side, like his neck was barely holding it up. His soaked clothes clung to his skin, his arms hanging stiffly at his sides. And his mouth. It was open, like he was whispering something. I couldn't hear it. Didn't want to hear it. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling as I pulled up the security feed again. The screen flickered. The figure was gone. I looked back at the glass. Empty. Nothing but the storm outside. The rain. The darkness. My chest tightened. Then, a sound. From inside the store. A slow, wet footstep. Behind me. I spun around, heart hammering. The aisles were empty. The door was still locked. No one had come inside, but the floor was wet. A single set of footprints led from the door to aisle 3, the same aisle the man had stood in before. I gripped the counter, my breathing uneven. "Hello?" Nothing. Silence. The air felt wrong, like the store wasn't empty anymore. I took a slow step forward. The fluorescent lights above flickered, just for a second. And then I heard it. Not the rain. Not the storm. Something else. A low whisper. Coming from aisle 3. I turned the corner, expecting to see someone standing there. But the aisle was empty. Just shelves stocked with instant noodles and canned soup. But the whispering, it didn't stop. It was everywhere now. Surrounding me. Soft. Constant. Incomprehensible. The lights flickered again. And this time, they didn't come back on. Darkness swallowed the store. I reached for my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. And then, a voice. Right behind me. Too close. Too real. "You shouldn't be here." I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't breathe. Just sprinted for the emergency exit, bursting through the door into the freezing rain. The wind roared around me, but I kept running. Didn't stop until I was in my car, locking the doors, my heart slamming against my ribs. I stared at the 7-Eleven, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The lights inside flickered, just once. And in that brief second, through the glass, I saw him, standing right where I had been moments ago. Still soaked, still whispering, still watching. And just before the lights went out again, he smiled. I quit the next morning. I didn't even go back for my last paycheck. I don't know who or what I saw that night. But sometimes when it's raining, I swear I hear it. That whisper. Soft. Constant.